Hello, everybody. Happy Sunday. I'm not in my usual spot, so I'm trying to adjust this light situation. It's like kind of too dark. I don't want it too bright. Anywho. Cool. Well, thanks for being here. And yeah, last week was fun. Minus the fact that the video did not work well at all. So hopefully this is working better. It looks better on my end. And I can see that there's a live chat. So if anyone wants to say hey to make sure that that's working, it would be really cool. Let's see. So as I was getting ready to hop on, I thought, like, what am I? I've been thinking about it more than just like this second. Oh, hi. Hi, Des and Samantha. I've been thinking about it more than just right before I got on. But right before I got on, I was thinking how this is kind of like a cool little reflection time for me. Oh, I don't like how the light keeps switching, so I'm going to fix this. We're just going to go dark. That seems appropriate, right? So yeah, just checking in about the week, some themes that I've noticed come up. Looks like it's been a busy week. And I also have some questions I'm going to answer from over on the platform. So I'm going to keep that open and go make sure I have those up. But to start us off, I guess there's a few things happening here in the indie birth world. We have a midwife in a couple weeks, mid-February. So right now, Russell, my partner, is painting in the garage. We have we are in the process of turning into my office and teaching space. So that feels really big and cool that we're going to have that event here in a couple weeks with many of our indie birth midwifery school students and also some others who aren't in the school, but they're going to all just have such a fun time here with me teaching and Alicia, my apprentice now midwife herself, teaching alongside me, which is going to be really fun to do for the first time. So I had to order a bunch of birth supplies, like so many birth supplies and skills practice supplies from Cascade this week. So those are on their way. That's a big, exciting thing. What else? Yeah, it always feels like there's 100 things, and then sometimes I blink when I actually have to put words to them. But we had a really fun meeting with our... Salute, yeah. Okay, we'll see how this goes. Ooh, sorry. You're like, okay. You say hi?
Hi.
Hi. I might have to recruit Dad to come in. He was supposed to be sleeping. I don't know what happened.
But
Do you want milk? That'll distract him for at least a few minutes. So what else is up? We had a really fun meeting with our second year midwifery school students. And we were sharing with them, not like all the details, but some of our fun ideas that we have in the works. Marin and I were planning to do some more, just always wondering how we can do more to support them and also our doula students and also our larger indie birth community in really getting in touch with themselves and rooting into what it is they really want to be feeling, really crafting the life of your dreams, right? So I just this week signed up to be a facilitator of the Desire Map workshops, which is something that Danielle Laporte offers. And that's really exciting. And it was something that I've been looking at for a long time. And so I'm digging into that material this week and thinking of all the ways that we're going to be integrating that into our programs and also into our offerings for the larger indie birth community. I think that's kind of like the biggest thing this week, which is really exciting. Oh yeah, Marin is doing her free workshop too. Indie Birth is busy. Yes. I can't remember what day that is in February, but it is in February. Cool. So let's kind of get to it here. I got this new deck that I want to pull a card from. Julie from our team sent me this as a little present, and they're really, really beautiful cards, and I'm excited to work with them. They've felt really appropriate the couple times I've used them already in the last week or so. So I'm going to pull a card while nursing. So fancy. I guess I would also just say, I guess in my personal life, I've been doing a lot of work. We have this really cool nonviolent communication coach we've been working with, and someone asked me this on the social platform, so I guess I'll also answer this question a little bit, maybe before I pull a card. Someone asked me what it looks like to use nonviolent communication, like in my family, with kids, partner, and also with clients. So there's a lady locally who does classes on nonviolent communication, and I have been meaning to go to them for a long time, but they're at a really awkward time. And so I haven't. And a couple months ago, I reached out and just said, like, hey, do you offer coaching one-on-one or with couples? You need to go now. No, you need to go elsewhere. Sorry. You need to go elsewhere right now. No. Thank you. Not a good example of my nonviolent communication, but got to hold that boundary. Kids aren't supposed to be around right now. But like I said, Russell's painting. So there's a little bit of wildness happening at my house today. What was I saying? Nonviolent communication. I reached out to ask if she would work with people kind of more one-on-one or with couples. And so my partner and I have done a couple sessions with her by Zoom, which has been really, really, really cool and helpful. And I did bring those over here. I feel like the simplicity of it is so nice. So we've got our like feelings and emotions sheet. And we've got our universal human needs and values sheet. I believe both of those are available just like freely online. And I'm gonna, I think, laminate them to keep them from getting all wrinkly and weird. Do you want more? To keep them from getting all wrinkled and weird. And so we can use them in an ongoing fashion because they're so helpful, even for us grown-ups, but they've also been helpful when kids have stuff come up and they're needing to figure out how they feel. Mostly my daughter, who's 6. This little guy doesn't have too many words yet for his feelings other than happy and so mad I'm gonna bite you. You know, so I asked Marin to let me know if this was looking okay. Cool. So, nonviolent communication. It's something that I'm thinking more about in terms of how I want to work it into what I do with clients. So that's kind of an ongoing thing. It also ties in really nicely with Danielle Laporte's work, actually, the desire map stuff, and naming the feelings you're wanting to cultivate and focus on in your life. So I think it's going to be kind of a natural extension of also weaving that work in. So my plan at the moment is that I would like to offer some desire map workshops in some form or another. I haven't quite hammered out the details of that for my local pregnant clients. And we've already kind of done some of that with the worksheets we've created and the way that we've structured 13 Moons. So we've already done it in small ways. I'm just looking at how I can do it in bigger ways, focusing on like that feelings first approach. And then I'm excited to see how that also might work in to being also more about the nonviolent communication stuff. So there's a whole book, if people aren't familiar. We require it as a book that our students read in the midwifery school as part of their communication class. And it's just so helpful because, you know, we're often taught to disconnect from our feelings, especially when they're inconvenient for others, our feelings and our needs. So even a lot of the women I know who are more in touch with how they're feeling don't have a good, what I mean to say is it takes some time to do this sorting process to figure out what need is attached or what value is attached to that need. So it's been really helpful even for me. I mean, all of these things are also helpful for me, which is why I learn about them and somewhat of a grasp. So days when I'm feeling overwhelmed, that's one that comes up a lot for me. I feel overwhelmed. It's helpful for me to then look at the needs sheet and be like, well, what need is that related to me either having or not having? So I know, like, probably for a lot of you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the chat here. For me, it comes back oftentimes to a need for space is one that comes up a lot. A lot of the things under the rest, recreation, and fun category on the human needs and values, a need for relaxation, a need for space, and tranquility. And I feel like this is a really good example of why. Look at this guy. He's so cute. He's so cute. He's very busy. He's been in a rascally mood today. Are you looking at your tongue? So it's really helpful to not just get stuck in the feeling, but actually connect it to that need so that then we can figure out, like, well, where do we go with this? So when I'm needing that, I'm super, super blessed to have the space I have it's in our basement. Oh, let's not bite. That doesn't feel good. There is a baby. I might have to bring you to Dad, huh? We might have to take a pause here in a moment. So to connect to that need for space and be like, you know what? I'm just going to go in the basement and nobody is going to come bother me for a little bit. And that's been so helpful for me to just be able to articulate those things. So while you all go Google the feelings and needs and universal human, the feeling sheet and the universal human needs sheet, I'm going to bring this guy to his dad for some space. Okay? Maybe you can help paint. I'll be right back. 2 shakes of a lamb's tail. Then we're going to pull a card. All right, let's do this. Pull a card from this fun new deck. It's so fun to see people's things over in the chat box. So I would love to hear from you all what's going on this week, and especially what comes up when I pull this card. So my intention with this is that I'm pulling a card for all of us who are here, myself included, and maybe it will stimulate a conversation. I also had one other thing I wanted to share with you all after this. Or two. Was it 2 things? 2 things. Okay. So let's see. Let's see what we've got here. Ooh. It's a pretty card. I will show you it. It says Eternal Love. And I have not gone through this entire deck yet, so I have not seen this one. It's like a rainbow, sunshine, maybe some DNA-esque rainbows looping together there at the bottom. And it also says happiness, harmony, fulfillment. So I am going to share with you from their little guidebook what this card's all about. Number 24. All right. So I really like this deck, and it's got these really fun affirmations that are attached to each card. So I'll get to that. Those are at the end. So eternal love, happiness, harmony, fulfillment. Something is resolved soon. A new page is turned as a concern you have dissolves and gives way to a period of sunshine. That's why there's the sunshine on the card. A time to relax and enjoy life, free of the worry and doubt that, oh, that light is so irritating. Sorry. A time to relax and enjoy life, free of the worry and doubt that have cast a gray shadow over your life for the past few weeks. During the coming month or so, try to spend some time in nature. Allow yourself to reconnect with the nurturing and healing power of the earth. Immerse and surround yourself in her natural beauty. She will help you restore your balance, harmonize your energy centers, and replenish your body, mind, and spirit. It may be difficult for you to switch off at first, but after a few days, as your thoughts slow down, you will settle into a new and more relaxed rhythm. Make the most of this opportunity while you can. This feels very pertinent, and I will share why in a moment. So the affirmation that comes with this card is, I am physically and emotionally connected to the healing power of Mother Earth. I surround myself with her beauty and feel a deep sense of peace. I am free of worry. Each day I grow stronger and more relaxed. My life is in perfect balance. All right. Well, I know for me that feels interesting, and I just shared with all of you that so often the need that I'm not getting met, or the need that's not being met and then leading to different feelings, is a need for relaxation. So that feels very timely for me. And this is the first time I've been off call for a little bit. And I have a few weeks before going back on call around the time of the skills workshop. And this week was the first time I've turned my phone off, maybe in like 3 years or something, which is like sort of crazy to even say. I've been off call other times, but I've always felt like I needed to have it on for the clients I do have. And I've gotten to a place now where I feel like if my clients really needed something and they're not in their kind of due window, they would find another way to reach out to me and contact me. And there's other places, there's other ways, and there's other people. So that's felt really good. I haven't turned it off for very long. I'm still working on it. But even turning it off for like 30 minutes at a time feels so good. To just not always feel like you might be summoned at any possible moment. So that's really big for me. And I love that word rhythm that came up with that card. I have, in varying degrees, whined about not having a rhythm or a structure for many years. Probably, I can remember, 4 years ago when I started seeing, at the time, she's not my therapist anymore because I don't go see her. But she is, I don't know. Anyways, I started seeing this really amazing therapist regularly after we moved here to Duluth, and I was getting kind of resettled and figuring out who I was postpartum. I was 2.5 years postpartum, but that's really what it was. And she was amazing and had so many cool resources and tools. And I remember even then saying I just really need some structure and some rhythm. And then I did have that for a bit and then had another baby. And so I'm kind of back in that swing of okay, what is the rhythm? The baby woke up when he usually would be sleeping, which is why I schedule these for 1:00. So that kind of stuff just throws such curveballs, and I think it's just an ongoing project. But having the phone off at certain times of day, we've also been establishing a rhythm of sort of not really family yoga time, but essentially trading off. My partner gets 15 or 20 minutes and then I get 15 or 20 minutes to do yoga in the mornings. Trying to get that more in a rhythm. Also, I've been, on and off, but pretty on with doing morning walks most days of the week for the last while, with some exceptions with pregnancy and stuff. But those are some of the things that I build in as cornerstones. And in general, I work in the mornings after all of that gets done, and then have tried to keep afternoons free not free, but more open in terms of like not having meetings so that I can either be with my kids or be outside with my kids or take on other projects or do other projects that are important to me, but that aren't necessarily scheduled. So those are some of the ways I've tried to build rhythm into my life. I would love to hear in the chat if other people have things they do that they feel like are working really well. Oh, I guess I also wanted to share, and I guess I wanted to really preface this at the very beginning with like, I think these Sunday things are really fun. And just a cool way to just reflect on the week and some of the resources and tools I'm working with. And I just always want people to know, like, I don't have all this figured out. If you thought that I did, just so you know, I don't think you did think that, but if you did think that, just know that that's not the case. And I think this is a really cool space where we can share ideas with each other. I'm sharing with you, but I'd love to hear from you what's working well for you around some of these topics. So the other rhythm that's been built into our week now is I'm doing work week lunch. Let's see if I can grab it. It's workweeklunch.com, and they send out, I'll put it in the chat, a meal plan every Wednesday. It's Wednesday, or is it Thursday? Wednesday or Thursday. And then you can customize it and change the servings. You can change out the recipes, like whatever, but it's really fun because it gives me ideas that I wouldn't come up with on my own. All of her recipes have been so tasty and delicious. And then I do pickup, which right now is free for whatever reason at the co-op. So I load all of it makes a grocery list for you, and I load it all in. And Friday night, and then go pick up groceries on Saturday. And then Sunday, like today, we've been doing this really fun like meal prep thing. So, which I always didn't like the idea of because I thought things wouldn't taste good a few days later. But all of these recipes have been really great, and she's picked them because they taste good even a few days later. So we've been doing that and having food pretty much made for the entire week, or we cook essentially 2 big batches, one on Sunday and then a smaller one on Wednesday. So that's been working super well for my family the last couple weeks. My partner had been making dinner pretty much every night. It was a habit that we had gotten into when I was pregnant the first time, really, and then we started being more even with it, and then with my second full-term pregnancy, got back into the swing of him, which was fine, but also is taking up a lot of his time. And just that time of night gets kind of crazy with kids. I don't know if that happens with all your kids. But it's like so not relaxing to try to cook while anyone's screaming. And I can really not help cook at this point because my little guy essentially won't let me. He wants to just be on me and grabbing things and sticking his foot in the pot and all that kind of stuff. So that's why Russell ends up cooking typically. Yeah, Joanna says, I'm always finding a balance between rhythm and schedule. Dude, I love the meal plan idea. Yeah, it's amazing. It's like $8 a month. It's so worth it. Samantha said, I bought a planner. Speaking of rhythm, trying to have practical, grounded tools to help me feel like I'm utilizing time well. Definitely also feeling the giving way to a period of sunshine thing. Yeah, totally. Totally. Something else I haven't done yet, but I have the supplies for is I had gotten myself a art journaling box. So I'll report back maybe next week about that. Maybe show off my art journal. So I've been trying to think of other things that like feel relaxing and somehow also feel like they'll fit into just like the chaos of life here on the farmlet. And that's something that I'm wondering like how that's going to look moving forward because, Arrow is 20 months old now, and he's getting a lot easier in so many ways. I think it's going to be really nice once it's easier to get outside. It's pretty cold still here, of course, although it's been a very mild winter. But Russell is taking on market gardening and eventually selling CSA shares and also flower shares. And that's a new thing this year. So we're going to have a whole nother thing added on top of what we're already doing. So I feel like we're going to need some more serious rhythm. Samantha says, as far as mentally feeling, I'm understanding myself and my needs, new space of mind. Oh, nice. That's awesome. So something I wanted to share with you all is this book. I have a thing for I have a thing for structure, is I guess what I would like to say, and building that in all the ways. And so I've gotten a couple books lately that kind of have that structure built into them. This is one that I've had for a couple years, and I've shared other places. It's called The Living Earth Devotional. I love it. It has dates in there. What is today? 17th, right? Okay. So I wanted to share that with you. I haven't read it yet. And last time I did this, it was so perfect. So it's almost, it's not oracle cards because it's already predetermined and the date is in there. And I don't look at it every day, but I do look at it a couple days a week and just kind of leave it out. And there's such beautiful little practices and they're short. I love it. So if you're needing inspiration and you like what I'm about to read you, I would encourage you to check it out. So January 17th, and they're funny. Like sometimes they're really practical and sometimes they're like a thing to actually do. Sometimes they're rituals. Sometimes they're just sort of philosophical. So we'll see what this one is. Cold weather is a time for hot cereal in the mornings. Like that's funny, right? I guess it's true. Year-round farmers markets or local-only markets will be able to tell you what grains are grown locally. Try a local grain with local dried fruits and some local honey. Heartier grains like whole oats, wheat berry, or wild rice can be put in the slow cooker the night before, then served hot first thing in the morning. Add a little more water than the usual ratio. This, I think, was written before the Instant Pot was invented. Top with local cream or your favorite dairy substitute. If local grains are hard to come by, or if those grown in or near your state don't fit your dietary needs, try some heirloom and lesser-known grains or seeds like quinoa, red quinoa, or amaranth. So that's like a really practical, this time of year, here's a way that you can try to connect with your local food system, which is super fun. And I had not thought about, and I'm totally going to make hot wild rice for breakfast tomorrow. That's a great idea. Why don't I do that? I should do that, right? Okay. The one for tomorrow is about saving energy, which is fun. Stuff about just reminding you to go gadget free. Anyways, cool reminders. She also talks about what am I trying to say? Sign changes. So on the 21st, the sun enters Aquarius today. So it's really cool, just kind of feels like having a really cool grandma around being like, today we should think about this, Yeah, cool. And so the other thing that I got just a couple days ago is called a week by week guide to invoking the divine feminine. And so I got this both for me and also for my daughter, because I've been trying to figure out how to work this in to our life and homeschool, and feeling like I've exposed her to different ideas around spirituality and connecting with herself. And of course, I'm always looking for those things for myself too. So this is called Your Goddess Year, which I think is so fun. And I think I literally Googled weekly goddess learning or something like that, because I was I just need a structured approach to learning more. So this is really cool. And it is January. So it felt like a cool time to dive into something like this. You can dive in anytime. But it's really neat. I wanted to just share with you, me and my daughter read this morning, the very first. It's week by week. So this was for the first week of January. So we'll probably read the other one too this week. But it was about Sophia, the goddess Sophia. And Sophia means wisdom in Greek. And it's got her story, and which is really fun and interesting. I had no idea about. Reasons to invite her, why she might be a cool, presence to invite into your life. And then her animal totems, and then how to invite her. It's got a little ritual, which a lot of times when I see rituals, I'm a little that feels kind of uninspiring. But this is really fun and feels actually kind of grounded and meaningful, so not a ripoff of anybody else's culture. So that's always a good thing, right? So yeah, I think I'm going to do it with her later. It involves lighting 12 candles, one for each month of the year. some intention setting, journaling, and sitting inside this circle of the 12 candles, which I think would feel really cool and meaningful. And I think would be also appropriate for my daughter. It feels like simple enough. So we also noted, or I noted for her, that it's cool that it's a Greek name. Seleucia's name is also Greek, and also ends with that IA. And yeah, so I just wanted to share that with you in case you were looking for something similar and if that was maybe inspiring to you. I had sort of not a homeschool fail, but afterwards I was like, you know what, we should do some art inspired by Sophia. So we just like wrote her name and like decorated a piece of paper, which I thought sounded really cool, but my daughter did for like 30 seconds and was done with. So, you know, you win some, you lose some, right? So what else is going on for people? I'd love to hear in the chat. And I'm going to also take a moment to pause and just think about if there was anything else I was wanting to share. Oh, yeah, there were questions. I got to find them, though, because I had them up. And now there's so much happening on this social platform that, you know, it's buried somewhere. So I have to find it. Just give me a moment. I'd love to hear from you, though, in the chat about what's going on for you this week. So weird. I'm like not seeing it here. So someone asked me, I know I can remember one, so I'll at least answer the one, and then I'll have to find the rest and maybe answer them next week. I really can't believe that I can't find that. Give me one more second. Maybe fine. Q&A? Q&A? Is that what I called it? What did I call this? All right, whatever. I give up. So one of the questions, though, stood out to me, and it was something to the effect of how did I feel ready when I started as a midwife? Did I feel like I had done enough of like my own shadow work and inner work and like gotten a handle essentially on my personal life before starting as a midwife? Or did I just kind of figure it out as I go? And I think that it's a really good question and also is really pertinent to all of this. So in case you couldn't already guess based on what I said earlier, like, you know, I think that the reality is we're all doing this work all the time. There is no end point. I do feel like I went into being a midwife, like calling myself a midwife and taking on my own clients, having done a fair amount of that work already. You know, I don't know how to, like, there's no way to like make it into a percentage, but I think I was blessed in that I got to work with Marin, and that was part of the process of working with her, was talking through all of that, you know, in between prenatals and debriefing from births, and, you know, just really getting to see how midwifery looked in her life, and then ask myself some of those questions before being out on my own. So I think that I was really lucky in that regard. And then yet there is still so much always that comes up and more layers to investigate and ideas to explore. And that's the fun of it, right? Like that, it's a big adventure. So I would say that I had done a lot of that, but there's always more to do. And I think that it's really important that people be actively engaged in, you know, whatever we want to call it, like connecting to your inner wisdom, you know, figuring out your spirituality stuff, looking at your limiting beliefs, figuring out your, you know, to use the desire map stuff, like your core desired feelings. All of that is really important to be doing alongside your midwifery education, which is why we do include it in both the Birth Warrior Project and the Mini Birth Midwifery School. And, we're looking at ways to incorporate it even more, more fully and with even more structure. Yeah. Honesty said, it is such an ongoing process. So of course there's no end or percentage. Thank you so much for your input and experience. Yeah. And I think that was you who had asked that question. So thank you for asking that. Someone else had asked a question around like, what kind of variety of births had I seen before I was out on my own? And that feels kind of like hard to necessarily sum up all in one place. But I had been to somewhere around 55-ish births before I took on a client of my own. And 13 of those were 13-ish, 13, maybe 15 of them were at the birth center in Utah where I did a short-term apprenticeship. And then the rest were with Marin. A couple were in the doula role, sort of. And I saw a lot. I mean, I mostly saw a lot of really normal births that were pretty, textbook boring. Not boring. They were really exciting to be at. But you know what I mean? Like there wasn't a lot that like came up in terms of emergencies when I was with Marin. The things I did see that were sort of more intense were mostly at the birth center. For reasons that I think most of you could guess, which is just that they were way more messed with. So I definitely saw, some more severe bleeding, some more severe like shoulder dystocia situations. Twice. Some recessions, that kind of thing while I was there, which ultimately was a good thing because it, one, reaffirmed that messing with things will make things harder for everyone and more dangerous. And two, that even if they did come up in a situation where I was, that I had, the skills and knowledge and then experience to meet those, issues head on. Cool. So I don't know if that answers that question. I didn't do a twin birth until I was already out on my own, and I was there as an assist. I saw one breech with Marin, and then I saw one breech at the twin birth I assisted at. Yeah. So I saw some VBACs, there was like a decent mix, but overall I just saw a lot of really nice, simple, straightforward births. Cool. It's making me feel a little bonkers. I'll practice my nonviolent communication. I'm feeling a little, what's my feeling? Is crazy on here? I have to look. See, this is the work of sorting your feelings. I'm feeling troubled. I'm feeling troubled that I cannot find this post. So if anybody has it open and can tell me what those other questions were, that'd be amazing. I just really don't understand. Maybe give me one more minute. I'm gonna look one more place and drink a sip of water. It's hard to sift through all the things on here since there's a lot. I had that big yellow. Oh, I found it. Oh my goodness. Good. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so I answered what variety of births did you experience before you felt ready to go solo as a midwife? So maybe there's a little bit more there with the ready part of that question. How does one ever feel ready, to attend a birth? And this is where I think a lot of this inner work comes in. And I was just listening to something, not to like beat it, keep rehashing the same thing here, but Danielle Laporte had a thing on confidence and building confidence, and confidence being a mindset, not a thing that you achieve. It's not a thing that, is achieved and then now you're confident. right? It's a mindset that we cultivate. And yes, being prepared is part of that. So whatever that means to you is crucial. But then there's all the other stuff that really has nothing to do with how much you've learned about postpartum hemorrhage or if you've seen one. Like, yes, those things are important. Apprenticeship is important. Learning this information is important. But there's also the inner work and the inner dialogue that's happening around this. So really listening to how you're talking to yourself about these things and replacing those thoughts of like, oh, I'm not good enough or I'm not ready with ones that are more true. I mean, if you are indeed ready. So I think doing a serious self-inquiry is a piece of it. Am I ready? And only you can answer that, which is why we don't believe in certification. It's why we don't believe in licensure. Someone could go to 500 births and have done 6 different MEEC accredited schools and still not be ready to be a midwife, because even if they have the knowledge and experience, they don't have the inner resources that it takes to show up at a birth and meet that birth experience in a way that is creative and grounded and centered. So that's not to say that I feel creative and grounded and centered at every single birth I go to, but that's my aim. And when I started going out on my own, that was my intention and goal. And I did feel like I was going to be able to do that. And that's what I'm always working on being better at. So ready is a tricky word. Ready for what, right? Ready for any possible scenario. We can never really be possible for any scenario. I think that's what an apprenticeship teaches you, is even if you think you've got whatever it is under control, like birth is not something we can control. There will be things that crop up that defy any logic or explanation. There's so much mystery and magic involved in birth. And, we just have to show up, and I guess the readiness is in the being open and ready to just respond in a way that feels right for you. So let's see. What other questions? And what connection does subchorionic hemorrhage or hematoma, depending on who you ask, have to do with diet, history, emotional trauma, etc., if any? I feel like that's a longer question, and one that I don't feel like I really know the answer to. So I might have to think about that for maybe next week. Austin asked, my question is your advice to mothers on working through trauma and anxiety to be fully intuitive and not negatively affecting pregnancy and birth outcomes out of fear. Thank you. I hope I can make it. Sleeping a lot at the moment and prioritizing that. Yes. Great. Sleep is so good. Working through trauma and anxiety to be fully intuitive. I think there's a lot of tools and methodologies out there. I think the simplest is just really tuning into like what it is that's already there. Like we have the answers inside of ourselves. That doesn't mean we don't want support sometimes, or maybe someone to just listen to us as we kind of reflect on what's going on for ourselves. But I guess my overarching advice is just to really look at that. Look at the trauma piece, look at the anxiety piece, and not just kind of sweep it under the rug. So that can look a lot of different ways. I've had clients who really love EMDR therapy. I've had clients who really like just regular talk therapy. Sometimes it's just enough to meet with your midwife and have really good conversations around what's coming up for you, and just sharing where you're coming from, reframing things that maybe are causing the anxiety. So I guess that would be questions like, what's causing this anxiety? Like, where is it coming from? The book Healing After Birth by Jennifer Sommerfeld. She's got really great questions and exercises and activities in her book. And I also did a podcast with her, which you can listen to. my Well Actually podcast. And I think there's a lot more there, but those are my initial thoughts. Sarah asks, I know it's a controversial question, but why not talk about it? What's your stance on vaccines? Are your children vaccinated? And Marion responded, that was on her last podcast. She answered that question. My kids are not vaccinated, is the very short answer. I don't really have a stance on vaccines aside from what I choose to do for me and my kids. My little guy has never been to a doctor. So my daughter has been once, but it was for paperwork. So she thought she wanted to go to kindergarten, and then she changed her mind. So anyways, we had to go get like a thing filled out. So aside from that, I've never taken them in. And for me, it just feels really clear that I don't want that or need that for them. When people have questions about vaccines, I point them towards Aviva Romm's book, Vaccinations, A Thoughtful Parent's Guide. It's my favorite one. It feels very not dramatic and just kind of runs down all the different options. I mean, at this point, it's a little bit outdated, being an older publication, but it's still really good. What other questions do we maybe have? Maybe I'll do one more. Zara had asked, I'd be interested in hearing more about your journey with nonviolent communication and how you practice it with your partner, kids, and clients, which we talked about a little bit. And okay. Savannah said, still early on and excited. Do you recommend early checkups? Genetic testing, risk during pregnancy. This is my first and I'm torn. I read at least by 12 weeks, but I'm hoping to wait until 22 to 23 weeks, if at all. And I'm not sure what you meant by that, Savannah, other than maybe to be seen by someone, or I'm not sure what that means. I don't want to know gender till birth, so they'd just be to make sure the little one's A-okay. I'm assuming you mean ultrasound since you're talking about the gender piece. Is it necessary? I'm 7 weeks now and have 0 symptoms. Also collecting colostrum during the 3rd trimester. Might be silly. If you collect, will there be enough for babe at birth? Okay, so there's a lot there, and I don't know if I'll get to all of it. And I think that this is just in general a really cool conversation to have, and we are some of the only people, I think, talking about this, and that is that I don't have blanket recommendations for what people should do or not do in the 1st trimester. I think it really comes back again to what do you want for this pregnancy? What are you needing? And where can you get those things if you need them or want them? And so in the 1st trimester, especially if you're feeling good, 7 weeks, really setting aside time and space to explore those questions as fully as possible is what I think is important. And that might look like journaling. It might look like meditation. It might just look like walking and thinking about it and feeling into it. It might be talking with friends. It might be meeting with midwives. And it might just, it might be some combination of all of those things. But my point is that, I don't have a specific recommendation. That being said, I guess there were a couple of things in there. There was the genetic piece, the genetic testing. And aside from a couple people who had clinical care early on and then switched to me later in pregnancy, I've never had any clients opt to do genetic testing. I don't know why that is. That's just the way it's been for me in my practice and the people that I attract, I guess. The question with that, of course, is what is the information we're hoping to get and what will we do with that information? So that is a big conversation, and it's totally up to the person and the couple and their big questions. And sometimes people think they'll respond one way to an answer that they get from the test, and then they respond differently. I've had people who wish they hadn't done it. I have not worked with anybody yet who would wish they had. But, I'm not seeing thousands of women, so maybe those people are out there. So it's one of those things where it's one of those topics where it's similar to ultrasound, which I'll talk about for a second too. But it's one of those things where it's like, well, I just want to go make sure everything's good. And then if everything comes back good, quote unquote, right, everything is normal, then people don't really think much about it. But for the people who get something back, genetic testing, the genetic screens are screening, they're not diagnostic. So oftentimes people will get something back that says like, hey, you might be it might be the case that your baby has a genetic abnormality. And then they have several, they have to make a decision about if they're going to do further investigation, which, it's not without risk, or if they're going to just sit in that wondering the rest of their pregnancy. Or even if they do the further testing, they've got a few weeks of having to wonder, right? So it's one of those things where if people do it and they get something back saying that their baby is more likely to have some kind of genetic abnormality, a lot of those people I have expressed to me, not necessarily my clients, but out in the world of people that we consult with, have said, I kind of wish I hadn't done it now because I thought it was going to come back and just tell me everything was fine. So people sometimes don't think through all the possible threads and ways that it could turn out. And then ultrasound, Marin has some really great podcasts, so I will direct you to those. So if people don't know, I recently reorganized the podcast archive page, and I'm going to put the link over here in the chat. It's indiebirth.org/podcast archive. And it's something I do all the time. Equivalent is on other systems. Is that the word? But I do Command F. So if you go on the archive page and hit Command F and just type in ultrasound, it pops right up. There's the What No One Ever Told You About Second Trimester Ultrasound episode for you to check out. Maybe I'll make one about first trimester ultrasound. Perhaps I'll add that to my list. We also have a search bar down in the browse by category section, which is on the blog page, like the main blog page. It's also on the podcast archive page. So you can also search by keyword there. But I'm going to drop the ultrasound link in the chat as well. There's also a really great ultrasound chapter in Gentle Birth, Gentle Mothering. I'm going to pull that up and put that in the chat too. It's called Ultrasound Scans, Cause for Concern, which is kind of a sensationalist title, but it's overall a very good chapter. It's one that I refer clients to a lot. So I think I answered most of the parts of that question. Except for I did want to say, this piece, the sentence here, it says, I don't want to know gender until birth, so they'd just be to make sure the little one's A-okay. So I just want to, yes, please go listen to the podcast, Marin's podcast, because it'll be way more in depth than I'm going to share in the next 20 seconds. But, ultrasound doesn't guarantee anything. And I think it's important that people understand that things can be missed that are important, and things can show up and seem really scary that aren't actually really scary. And like I said, I don't do tons of births. I do 1 or 2 a month. Sometimes I don't do any a month. So, this year I'll probably attend somewhere between 15-ish and 20 births. So I don't work with tons of people, but it feels like it comes up a lot that people are told something at their ultrasound, their 20-week anatomy scan, that they either need to go back and rescan or watch or do another follow-up in the 3rd trimester that can feel really scary and weird. So I know that's happened at least 8 times in the last couple years. So it's not uncommon that something pops up. And usually they say, oh, it's probably nothing, but we need to keep looking. And what does that do? In terms of causing anxiety, speaking of that. So it's one of those things, sometimes I wish we just didn't have technology available because it would make choices easier, but we do. And the only person who can make the choice is you, because you are the one who has to do that. Well, cool. Thanks for hanging with me, everybody. That hour flew by. Next time, I'll be sure to not have little children around. They'll either be sleeping or Russell won't be painting. And I'm sure I'll come up with a bunch more things to share thoughts about next week, but I would also love to answer questions. I think the Q&A piece is really fun, because if someone's like, tell me about ultrasounds, that's less fun than reading and actually like getting to see what the questions really are under the question. So I love questions. Please reach out to me. I might post another thread over on the social platform. And I'll be back here next week. I think that's it. So until then, don't be a stranger. And I'd love to hear if anything came up for you as we talked. All right, bye, everybody.